All right, I think now we will start up this webinar. And I said before, it's about new solutions in district heating. It's about preparing utilities for a data-driven future. My name is Lars Hummelmose. I'm the Managing Director of Danish Board of District Heating. We have in this is the third webinar in a series of 3 webinars. I would have to say that this webinar is going to be recorded, just so you know that it'll be used, can be viewed afterwards on our webpage. So just so for your information. I'm so happy to see. I think we have plus almost 100 signed up. I know it's usually less that's participating, but I can see we're reaching a number about 50 at the moment. And we have participants from more than 20 countries. So that's a quite amazing, very broad number of participants we can get, both from utilities, from technology providers, but also from consultancy engineers and even from cities. So we have a good mix also of participants. I hope you will also be asking questions into this webinar as we have presenters. I'll go into the program in a minute. You have a chance in the right side to hit the one with comments, and you're welcome to write comments or questions, and we'll try to answer them as we go on. As I'll be the host today, I'll try to put the questions to the presenters, and also you can raise your hand and you can get the mic if you want so. The program I'm going to share with you is just a minute, so share my screen. We will start out with a presentation from, go one down, with a presentation from Jens Cornelius from KMD, who's co-hosting this today. You're going to talk about challenges, opportunities, and why data is a cornerstone of the green transition. We'll go to another presentation from our Norwegian friends, from Torsten Heller from Greenbird, how a new IT architecture supports a modern energy infrastructure. So there's a lot of new words here, and we all know that data is that utilities will be driven by more and more by data, and they can use this for many things. Then we're having 2 utilities presenting on. The first one with Mark Roar Hense from Assens Fjernvarme, Danish utility district heating company, talking about what's important for utilities to consider when they're pursuing a data-driven business model. And we also have another utility from Hofor, the biggest Danish utility from Gorm Elikoffer, talking about using data and IT to improve district heating in Copenhagen. So that will be the presentations of today. We're having these 1, 2, 3, 4 presentations, and then the end there'll room for questions and debate. But please, anytime you have a question, just write it in the chat, raise your hand, and if times allow, we will take it as we go on. Otherwise, we'll take it all the questions in the end. So hopefully you will learn a lot from this webinar. We look very much forward to it. So now I will give the floor to Jens Cornelius from KMD, and I will please go ahead, Jens.
Thank you, Lars, and thank you to everybody that is a part of this webinar and listening, and great seeing Gorm and Torsten and Mark joining. Let's have a good discussion and some good inputs into the discussion. My name is Jens Cornelius. I'm Business Line Director for what we call Sustainability Solutions in KMD, and are part of a team working with our offerings in this area. And before I just go, I just quickly make a short introduction for those of you who might know KMD from that point of view. As you might know, we are a Danish IT provider, been here for quite a while, and we have huge ambitions also in the area of energy and climate. And as one of you might know, we have several offerings for the energy and climate business. Serving this for over 40 years, we know a lot about what's going on in the real life. So my topic is today a little about around why data issue to be looked in another way that we maybe are used to, and how it interacts with some of the other perspectives I might, Gorm and Torsten and Mark have, because I think we sometimes miss that point, focusing too much on the IT perspective and maybe miss the data perspective a little bit, because it's really a cornerstone in my opinion. So if I should look at this and take it to another level, I say we all know about the green agenda. We all know that it's a global trend. We all want to be a part of it. We all want to build a world we can live in, also in the future and for next generation. So it's the different perspectives and different drivers we want to consider. And of course, it's about cost efficiency, the cost to serve. That's very important for utility companies, and also offering society and customers new data services. That's one aspect. The one is on the green saving side. We really need to make sure that we only use the energy that is really needed, and at the time it's needed, and in the right mix, so it's pure green. And we also want to make sure that we can balance the power system flexibility with all those areas of utilities that can come into account. And of course, for utilities, there also are big investments. I know Mark and Gorm can talk more about that. Huge investments in the infrastructure. So you really want to have those investments and assets management turned into knowledge you can act on. And then, as we all are citizens in a global world, we like to show commitment. We like to make our contribution to saving the carbon emissions, and we want to get healthy and have a well-being. And that's also a part of it, making the balance between indoor, outdoor climate and energy consumption. So this is drivers that any utility, any data-driven business has to take into account. And from my perspective, if you talk about business, you must talk about data, and it's all about data from here on. If we should look at some of the challenges that I see and have experienced through my career, and I've had the opportunity to be so lucky to work in quite a big multi-utility company in the greater Copenhagen area. So I know that it could be some of these challenges you might have in your own business. It's all about enterprise architecture. For many decades, utilities and other companies has been investing in IT systems, buying a solution or a service for any corner of the business. But what many experience now, that if you want to turn this value and have a more strong value creation, you need to think about how it's all put together. Like this drawing, is there a meaning with it? Is there a strategy? We also see that one of the challenges is that there's a huge expansion of meters and IoT devices. So we talk about big data. Every kind of solution or any kind of asset in the real life can turn any measurement into data and time series, and that will just get the data to explode. So that's another challenge. Really many bits and bytes scattered across an enterprise architect that might not be designed appropriate for that matter. And then on the right side here, we also have that when we see into the production of the utility companies and any company, we have the OT, the operations technology side of it, that actually turns the value, the data into value, and then the supporting information technology. And those two are joining forces. We have to use both sides of the coin to make sure that the data are gathered and can play a role together in turning data into value. And then, as many companies in the last 5 years have done, making a transition from a pure on-premise environment on the IT side to both utilizing private and public data centers in like a hybrid model. And all these challenges together is just making a huge pressure on how to actually build an architecture, build a data strategy that can fit in and support the transition. So if you have a business and you have data in all your different systems, there's a lot of potential to go, but you need to have a data strategy. So challenge accepted. It's very important to know that all these areas is something you have to consider, not only investing in IT, but also investing in how to put the IT together. And mostly important from my perspective, making sure that you have a data strategy and are keen on also the data quality. I think Torsten also is going to elaborate a little bit on this, but from my perspective, any utility company should look at itself and say, are my company in the gaming or betting industry? Because some of you might be old enough to remember the game Tetris from the 80s, where all the small bricks fall down and you have to place them really fast to get points. So if you don't have an architecture and you don't have a systematic and good approach to this, you are in the betting or gaming industry. And I would pretty much avoid that if you're a utility company, because you actually are playing Tetris with the customer's money. So if you look at this picture and say, okay, we have a lot of different systems and we also have a lot of data, and we have data that are real-time data, we have historical data. So if you look at your company, you actually are playing Tetris with a bunch of data, with a bunch of value that if they are put right together, you can have tremendous value created. So when we are going to talk about having a grid, where all the different areas from district heat to power and water and wastewater and heat pumps and solar cells and windmills are joined together in the grid, we know they all need a lot of different systems. They all create a lot of data. So every time we put a system in place, we need to think about, do we have a data strategy? Do we have a strategy for not only making sure that we put the systems together in the right manner? Are we getting a system for making sure that data can float between them? And do we have the right strategy for actually making sure that the data strategy also covers the quality of data? Because I mentioned before, it's not difficult to get data. The difficult part is to get the data in a high quality so you can actually use it for decisions, because it's really big investments. So if we look at the normal company, we all might know that we have a lot of data. If they're put right together, you can have a lot of information. And that is really a skill you have to take into consideration, forming data into information. So you can have the real data scientist look at it and say, okay, these are the dots we have to put together to create knowledge, to create insight, hopefully in the end, create wisdom. And if not, it's all about conspiracy theory. So you have to make sure that you have a data strategy that actually takes you from the data part to the wisdom part. And as you see, all the dots are connected with lines. And I know Torsten will come back to that, because it's all about, if you don't know what kind of data you have and where to put them and route them the right way, you will lose the insights and the wisdom, and you will only have like the conspiracy theory left. What we work about a lot in KMD is data quality, and that's also why we joined this webinar together with the DBDH, because what we bring to the table is all about data quality. All those data gathered from the IT side, the OT side, the IoT devices, they can be used tremendously to support a lot of exciting business cases. But if you don't know what the quality is about, you'll be making decisions with a blindfold, and maybe you'll also be in the gaming industry making decisions based on wrong data. So from my point of view, if you don't have the right data strategy, you don't have an eye for connecting the dots and making sure that we really know how to bring the enterprise architecture together and have a high data quality, you will not be able to do what we will hear that Mark and Gorm have done in their companies. And also you cannot utilize the benefits of a business architecture that supports the green transition. So that was my take on the topic. Thank you, Lars.
Just on to unmute. Thank you. Thank you, Jens, for this presentation about bringing the dots together, securing the green transition in a proper way, and don't gamble with your business. And that is what you can help out on to connect the dots for the district heating utilities. I think you just go ahead to Torsten Heller from Greenbird, getting his presentation, and then we'll save the questions that might be for later. So go ahead, Torsten. I can see you already are ready here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. And in case you are hearing some strange noise in the background, I was just playing football with my team members, so there might be some balls hitting the wall. But anyway, my name is Torsten Heller. I'm the CEO of Greenbird Integration Technology. So Greenbird is a company, as you already said, Lars. We are based out of Norway, and our core focus is data integration. Because Jens already talked about this, many utilities, and it's not only utilities, it's also other organizations driving the digital transformation. It's always about, are you gambling with your client's money, as Jens said it. Interestingly, and I think we all know that, if you are deploying an application, any kind of an application, you typically would spend €5 on data integration. And Jens talked about it, how important it is to have a good data quality, and that is exactly what we are solving in Greenbird. So Greenbird is a company, and we are really burning for making good data integration solutions, because without those kind of data integration solutions in place, you won't be able to drive the digital transformation. What I want to talk about, because even if I'm the CEO of Greenbird, but I have been most of my life working as an enterprise architect. So I'm a utility architect, and by heart, I'm really burning for architecture. So what I want to introduce are some ideas, some concepts for a future-proof architecture. And to do that, what I want to do is I want to start with some insights, what I believe, and it's going to be quite interesting afterwards to hear also from the utilities, whether they agree or not. But one of the things I'm quite focused on, and I think many of our clients and many of the utilities have understood, that to drive this data-driven transition, to drive sustainability, you have to transform your organization. Many utilities 5-10 years ago, they had a heavy focus on the assets. And yes, that was correct that time. But now we are talking about data. We are talking about driving the digital transformation. We are talking about how important data is. And that means as a utility, you have to invest in your IT architecture. But what you also have to invest is in your organization. Because you are turning, or you must, from being a simple buyer utility where you focus on the infrastructure, on the assets, you should think about, maybe I'm not a utility anymore. Maybe I'm a data company. Maybe I'm a software company. And I think we all remember Mark Andreessen, the founder from Netscape. I think in 2010, he was coining this beautiful saying, software is eating the world. And I would say, for utilities, it's data eating the world, because if a utility is not able to turn the mindset and the organization into a data company, into a software company, I think then this transition we are working with is going to be quite hard. So one of the things is architecture, but I think also it's quite important for utility to make the transition in the organization to understand, oh, we are a software company. We are a data company. And in addition to that, we are operating the infrastructure. And I really believe that is an important mindset. And I'm so glad to see many utilities out there. They have understood it. And that is one of the reasons why we see more and more chief digital officers, more and more chief data officers coming also in the utilities. And that is just a proof that the utilities have understood. We have been an asset-driven company, but now we are a real data-driven company. Another interesting thing, what I think is, when we talk about architecture, is we have to think about IT architecture for utility in a different way. Utilities had always a kind of tradition on thinking legacy. Not thinking legacy, sorry, that is a wrong word. What I mean is, the IT innovation within utilities, that wasn't the most innovative industry. Had a lot of big players, a lot of monolithic applications. But what we are talking about in district heating, distributed heating, what we talk about also energy utilities, we are talking about deploying more and more sensors in the network. We talk about creating digital twins. We talk about having data available in real time. So what it really means is we are building a distributed infrastructure. And to operate a distributed infrastructure, you also have to implement a distributed data architecture. And that's something where I believe that as a utility, we also have to rethink our approach to IT architecture, because it means I have to deploy a distributed data architecture where each of the nodes in my network can be a producer and a consumer of data too. And that means also for me, as a utility, I have to rethink my approach. Can I run these monolithic applications, centralized IT operations? I don't think so, because we talk about distributed. A second aspect, which is quite important, and that is something, to be fair, unfortunately, it's not for me. I read it somewhere for 2 or 3 weeks ago. The future utility IT architecture has to be designed for uncertainty. And that is quite important, I believe, because Jens already talked about big data. And I really believe, and I think we all here in the audience and we all in the call here can agree on, it's going to be more and more big data in the future. We're going to have more and more sensors. So we really don't know how much data we will have to handle. Then on the other side, we are in the starting phase of developing these data-driven business models. We are in the starting phase of developing data-driven services. So we are on the other side. We don't know really how much data I need, how much processing power I need. I don't know. Then there might be regulations that are changing. Maybe we get regulations changing that says we have to move more of the sensitive data in a private cloud or public cloud. Maybe we get new players in, and that means if we are thinking about architecture today, it's quite important to design an IT architecture for uncertainty. And that is something, architecture designed for uncertainty, I believe is quite important for utilities, that we have to build an enterprise architecture that is flexible, that I can adapt quite fast, that I can scale up, scale down, and that is extremely important for the future IT architecture. So one of the elements I already spoke about, scalability, big data, more and more sensors in the network, maybe more and more AI models, maybe more and more analytic services. That means I need, as a utility, a platform that can handle 10 times, 100 times the amount of or volume of data in the future. Maybe. So I have to define a platform that is scalable, but for uncertainty. Another element, what we have to think about in our architecture in the future, that is the dynamic elasticity. Because it might be that we have a situation that suddenly all of my sensors start communicating. Maybe all of my sensors are creating alarm and event messages. So I want to have a platform that can react on the load of data. That is also extremely important. Another element we should think about in our architecture is flexibility from an operations point of view. What do I mean here? Let's assume we are moving more and more of our loads into the cloud. But maybe the regulations are changing and sensitive data should be processed in my OT. Maybe some of the sensitive data should be operated in a private cloud. So what I need is I need an architecture where I can move loads from the cloud to private cloud to on-premise, but also vice versa. And what I also want is, because we are talking more and more about the distributed infrastructure, and I already started to talk about the distributed data architecture, it means also I need the flexibility to process data maybe at the edge, to process data maybe in a private cloud and send some results up to the cloud. So I need a flexibility in my operations to be able to operate in the future landscape. Another element that is quite important when we think about architecture is adaptability, because also from a functional point, a lot of things are changing. We're going to see more and more data-driven services. We're going to see new business models. We're going to see maybe new consumer groups. And that means I want the possibility and I want to be able to deliver those functional services quite fast. And that means, again, this monolithic approach that many utilities have worked with, where you typically would have to wait for 9, 12, 18 months to get a new API, that is not working anymore in the future. Because we have to be able to adapt quickly. Another aspect that is important, that is something I call reusable data. And what do I mean with reusable data? We already talked about, and Jens talked about it. We get more and more big data. We get more and more data from OT to IT. We get more and more data about our consumers, about our infrastructure. What we should think about is we have to build a data foundation. And this data foundation is what I'm going to use for my different services. If I'm not thinking in reusable data, what might happen? Might happen that we are solving a given data-driven service. And for this data-driven service, I would implement the integrations and the aggregation of the data. And now I'm building a next service, and then I'm starting just to reuse something. And in this case, what I mean with reuse, I start using a copy of the data. And then I'm starting over again, use the next copy of the data. So what I'm doing multiplying the data. And that's not really what I want, because then it's going to be expensive and it's going to be quite hard to ensure a good data quality. So what I should think about from an architecture point of view, how can I build an infrastructure where I also create the data foundation that can serve many different use cases, many different data-driven services, but I have to think about creating a data foundation and not just solving the different integration challenges case by case. And that brings me also to two elements Jens already spoke about, and that is the importance of good data, high data quality, and what we also see is more and more real-time data. We need to be able to handle in real time. A lot of the use cases, predictive maintenance, forecasting, they are all depending on real-time data. So the architecture we are building must support real-time access. And the same thing, and that is also something I believe is quite important, when we think about the future architecture, it must be a platform, an infrastructure that is open. Open to get more and more data in, different data types, open to connect more and more different systems. But even more important, it must be also a platform that has open APIs and open interfaces that lets you as a utility to use the data and build services on top. So we have to think about a platform, a kind of a layered architecture where we are solving the data integration in a smart way. So you as a utility wouldn't have to spend a lot of time on solving data integration. Then we should think about an architecture with a layer where we have the data foundation in place, and then open APIs where you as a utility would build these services on top. And that is something, and I really like the wording, and now I'm back to Jens and the Tetris game, because there is the idea of composable systems and composable data. And what it means is exactly what Jens described with his Tetris idea. And that's why I, of course, reused the Tetris theme here too. When we think about building the future architecture, and I think we all agree we have to rethink architecture for utilities, then we have to think composable. That means I have to build my architecture from modules, from composable services, but I also want to be able to use my data foundation, and that is the concept of composable data. So when we think about how should we architect, how should we play our Tetris game, then we should think about playing this enterprise architecture Tetris game, composable systems, composable data. And that might mean we have to rethink whether our existing service providers, whether our existing systems fit into the concept. And one of the important things, what I believe, what each of the utilities being part or driving this energy transition, driving the green shift, should invest in is in an architecture that can handle those kind of data. And for building this infrastructure, there are three quite important elements. And of course, I'm biased. As I said in the beginning, I'm really burning for enterprise architecture, and I really burn for data integration, good data integration solutions. But as a utility, I'm convinced you have to invest in a data integration platform that is able to integrate all the different data sources in a smart and easy way. And you don't want to spend 18, 24, 36 months to do data integration, because the business value is not created in the data integration. The business value is created when you leverage the data. And that is the reason why you need to invest in a cloud-native platform that is handling the data integration for you. But as I already said, you also want to build this data foundation. And that's why you need also capabilities to store and harmonize the data. And then you would need a managed layer where you can handle the data provisioning. That means a combination of data integration, a cloud-native platform that helps you to move whenever regulations are changing or whenever you want to process data at the edge. So you need a cloud-native platform where you can distribute workloads. And then you want a platform that is able to store and harmonize data and provide the data in a managed way. And that is important. And I'm a strong believer that all of the utilities will have to invest in something similar to be able to drive their digital transformation. So a cloud-native platform supporting hybrid integration, because also Jens talked about you will always have some OT data, you might always have data from some legacy system, so you need a platform able to handle hybrid integration, a platform that helps you to harmonize and build a data foundation and then provides open data access. And that is what I believe as a utility you have to invest in to build, and that can help you to drive your digital transformation. And with that, I hope I gave some ideas for architecture, composable data, composable systems, and a modern cloud-native data integration and data management platform. That is what I believe utilities have to focus on to be able to architect the future energy landscape.
Well, thank you so much, Torsten, for this. I'm wondering, when you are presenting the same as when Jens did, what about security? We have a lot about issues on security, and you're talking about open platforms. Would it be more difficult to have security in open platforms than in more closed systems? And what's your view? What's your views on that?
Thanks for asking, and I forgot it. Thank you. When I'm talking about open platform, open APIs, data provisioning, what I'm really talking about is managed access to data. Of course, security is a high topic, but that means, and the good news is, from a technical point of view, from an IT, from a software point of view, you have the measures in place and the mechanisms in place to secure your APIs, to manage access to the data. So I should have been clear, and thanks for asking. I'm not talking about opening up the data to the internet, but what I'm talking about is, and that is something I'm quite into it. What I have seen too many times is that you have companies doing analytics, providing data-driven services, but what they really do is they just build another silo. What we talked about the last 10 minutes was breaking the silos. What I'm quite obsessed of is I want to give utilities the chance to build their own services on their own data. And that's what I meant with open access to the data, but with security in mind, managed APIs, secured APIs, secured integration, encrypted messages, all the security measures, of course, in place. But I don't want to create a new silo just because I might have the coolest AI service in the world. If you are creating a new silo, that's not what we are talking about at all.
Yes. All right. I think we'll leave it with this. Thank you so much, Torsten, for opening our minds and to be about how you're designing for uncertainty in the future, and also what we should look in for when we're designing our IT network in the utilities. All right, we'll go now to the first of two utilities, talking about how they are handling data and how they can. The first one with Mark Rohr Hinze from Assens Fjernvarme, talking about how you are using or pursuing a data-driven business model as a utility. Mark, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Lars. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I think you need to make it full screen.
Yeah. Is it full
yes,
screen?
perfect. Now? Perfect.
Okay. My name is Mark Rohr Hinze. I'm the managing director of a smaller utility on Fyn in Denmark called Assens Fjernvarme. Just short about us, we are a cooperative. That is a non-profit company established in 1960. We have 3,450 customers, or yeah, that's mainly households, but also some industry. We have been, and we are owned by the shareholders or the customers. We have been CO2 neutral since 1988, so that's for 34 years. And our yearly production of heat is 150,000 megawatt hours, and the power generation is 35,000 megawatt hours. And that power generation actually, that's enough to supply the whole city, all our customers with electricity, and also if they had a electric car, if there was 3,450 electric cars in our city, they could all drive 25,000 kilometers per year on the green or sustainable electricity that we are producing here. The latest 5 or 10 years, there's been a lot of a massive expansion of wind and solar energy in the system, not only in Denmark, but also in Scandinavia and the whole of Europe, which has changed the power, the electricity market very much. Therefore, we made a project where we was trying, or where we have succeeded actually, in sector coupling some very different systems. We have called the project Renewable Combined Heat and Power, and the business model is based on all those. The result of all the sustainable energy in the system has resulted in very fluctuating prices in the spot market, in the electric market, and we have tried to actually benefit from this in our business model, and we have done it by using our biomass CHP. We have our CHP, where a combined heat and power plant, where we are using rest wood chips from forestry. All the wood chips is locally sourced within 50 kilometers from the utility. We have a wind turbine, as you see on the slide, and we have built last year a solar park, and we have built also last year an electric air to water heat pump. We have combined the whole system, or the different units here. We have a biomass CHP where we can produce 15 megawatts of heat. The heat is shown here by red lines, and we can also produce 5 megawatts of electricity on the CHP. Then we have the wind turbine, 1.3 megawatt electricity, and we have the solar park of 6.2 megawatts. In this system, we have connected the whole system to the power market, so we can, if we produce max electricity, we can supply 12.5 megawatt to the grid. We can also take power from the grid and put it into either an electric boiler of 16 megawatt electricity or a heat pump of 2.3 megawatt. But we can also combine it so that we can either produce electricity to the grid, or we can take from the grid, or we can do both. We can actually, we are allowed to supply for instance, the heat pump with electricity, 50% electricity from the wind turbine or from the solar park. We can also take some of the power from the biomass CHP and put into the heat pump, and then we will have a very high efficiency on the positive side of 100% efficiency. So we have a lot of actually infinite combination possibilities here, and we haven't invented something. The biomass CHP, we all know wind turbine, solar park, and also the heat pump. It's all technology which is known. But the new here is the combination that we can produce in the way we want. And actually, and as a result of this, we are able to from May to September, we can take the power from the wind turbine and the solar park, put it into the heat pump, and then we don't have to use any biomass at all. If the electric prices, the spot prices, are very high, we would prefer to sell all the electricity from the wind turbine and the solar park to the grid and have our income there. Then we don't have the heat, but that we can produce on the biomass CHP or in the nighttime, if the prices on the spot market are lower, we can buy electricity from the grid, put it into the heat pump or the electric boiler, and store it in the accumulation tank. So the idea here is to sell electric power when the prices are high, and buy power or electricity when the prices are low or even negative, which often is the fact here in Denmark. And if the electric prices is between very high and very low, we use the electricity ourselves. The result of this project has been that we have, this year, or 2021, was the best year in our history. We have the result was we had a plus of 150 million euro, 11 million kroner. And for the next year, we have lowered the prices. And what the system can here is to offer our customers or owners very low heat prices, but also very stable heat prices. We have some of the lowest heat prices in Denmark, actually. A system like this is very complex because we have a lot of data or forecast data we are becoming every minute. We have a forecast on the temperature for every 5 days. We are getting a forecast on a minutely basis. So we have temperature data. We have data about the forecast of the sun and the wind data, the heat demand, and also data about the power market. And those data, of course, or the forecasts are changing very often. We use the data for making a 5-day plan, and this plan is optimized so that we have the best cost or the best income in the company. We have made with some partners, EMD and Danske Commodities, we have made this or developed this software, and the software fits into the power market, but it also regulates and controls the heat pump and the CHP. So the whole system here is unmanned. It's the software and who is controlling it all and also fitting into the power market. But how to handle this complexity, I will show here. That's a screenshot of our software, and what you can see here is that we have some forecast of the spot prices, 5 days. This screenshot is from December 21, 1 month ago, and as you see here, we have in Saturday, 11th of December, we have very high prices, and the 15th of December, we have very low prices, nearly zero. And here it's 2,000 kroner. That's about 650 euros per megawatt. And in the middle here, we have moderate, pretty high prices too. With this prognosis of the spot prices, the software makes a plan for 5 days of power production. The dark green here, that's the CHP. The red is the plan for the solar park, and the light green here is the wind turbine. The blue line here is not power production, but power consumption of the heat pump. And as you see here, we have very low prices here. So the software says, okay, here we should use the power ourselves, the electricity, for the heat pump. The next day, the prices are even lower. So we use the electricity from the wind turbine ourselves. and we buy some electricity here from the grid because it's so cheap. We can't stop the wind turbine, therefore we use the power ourselves, and it's more economical to use it ourselves than selling it. So this is a 5-day plan for power production, resulting in a heat production like this. This is the red line is the demand, and the dark green is heat production from the CHP, and the blue is heat production from the heat pump. Over here you see how the program calculates bits into the market, and it can, as I said, put the bits into the power market itself. It can also regulate, as I said, the CHP or the heat pump. Can start the heat pump or turn it off, and also it can adjust the generator on the CHP if needed. Some takeaways: the green transition leads to a very unpredictable market. And we should all consider this as a business opportunity. Years ago, it was our life was much easier. The spot prices were very stable, and life was easy. Now it's very unstable, but we should see it as a business opportunity. And we can do that by coupling sectors, the heat sector and the power sector. We can couple that together, and we can actually earn money on this. Though we get a lot of data, and we have to be able to handle it, and it requires very complex systems. Nobody can make all those, no human body can or human brain can make all those calculations themselves. So we have to have advanced software systems to predict the weather, the temperatures, and the sun and wind, and also to regulate the production. And that, of course, needs good software specialists, and we have to be able to develop those systems interdisciplinarily. It's mechanical engineer, IT, and software engineers, and has to work together, and that's an important and a very the important thing in this. I think that was all for me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mark. Just a short question here. So when you chose your software provider, if you should say out of your head, I mean, you have already mentioned some topics why you're choosing, but what is the two main criteria you've been looking into when you chose your software for using?
What we did here was very new, never seen before, so we couldn't ask anybody. But also, of this reason, we could ask anybody. But for us, it was, or for me, it was important to find some who had very deep insight in making or handling prognosis, wind and sun, and EMD have this experience. And then the connection to the power market. We used our PBA, Danske Commodities, because they have a software which can handle this more or less. And we took those two partners with ourselves and fit it together. So what was important? It was important to find some specialists within some areas there. And
another question: do you have, in essence, a data management system to avoid data silos? We've been talking about this, with avoiding these silos to avoid and ensure high data quality. So
No, well, we don't have. I think we are smaller utility here, and I'm a mechanical engineer, and I think we have for us it was a huge challenge for the first to get the permissions to build the system from the authorities. And then came we couldn't buy the system as a total enterprise. We had to divide it into 7 different enterprises and put it together. I think if we were a bigger company, we could have made a data management strategy, but we are too small, so we have done it by learning it as
you go along. Yeah. Yes. Learn by doing.
By doing, yeah.
Yes, and it was also quite impressive to see what you've been doing, and then you kept your power production, and it became a good business for you that you kept you much more flexibility.
Yeah, and because it's important that we shouldn't produce heat. If it's possible, we should also go for the highest quality of energy. The entropy is very important. If you can produce electricity from biomass, you shouldn't produce heat, but if possible, you should make the energy with the highest quality, and that's electricity. The heat will will always come because it's low quality. Everything heat.
All right, Mark. Thank you so much for your presentation, and you will stay with us for the Q&A session also. Yes. Thank you. Now we'll go to the last presentation. Is from Hofort, Denmark's largest utility. We have Gorm Ellegaard with us, talking about using data and IT to improve district heating in Copenhagen. So Gorm, please go ahead. Your microphone needs to be
now.
Yes, perfect.
Much better now, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Lars. Let me allow me to start with 2 disclaimers. One is that I might be in the wrong webinar because I believe that data-driven future might be data-driven present, since we have to be there already. I know we're a little bit lacking, but it's today. That was the first one. The second one of the disclaimers is that I'm not a technician, but for the last 20 years, I have worked with making business out of data. So I'm more into the business data side than into the technical engineer side. So if there's any questions on the technical engineering side, I can answer them, but the answers might not be right. There it is. Hofort, or Greater Copenhagen Utility, is the largest Danish utility on the multi-side. We have approximately 1/5 of the district heating and drinking water in Denmark. One of the largest growing areas is rainwater handling due to the problems with the heating up the planet. A lot of district gas also, and district cooling, interesting product from a CO2 side. And then we also have production in sustainable energy. We have a turnover of 0.8 billion euros and approximately 1,400 employees. So we are wide in areas, and we are one of the issues that you mentioned, Torsten, is breaking down silos, but we have a lot of silos here which we are trying to break down, not only between the old business and the new business, data business, but also between business lines. What we are seeing into that we try to use data to optimize throughout the value chain. I've just jumped into a few examples here. One is similar to the one that we just saw from Assens, and that is the one called Flex Heat out on the right side in the production, where we have a very interesting project, a heat pump who produces on a combination of seawater, gas, and electricity, and it also delivers products to the energy market in electricity and system products to the PSO, and it also delivers district heating to a local district heating grid out there. And there's some algorithms looking into market prices, optimizing up to the Copenhagen district heating market, to the electricity market, and to the gas market. And this is it's a very interesting product, and it earns a lot of money to us instead of having people doing this. This is putting electricity or data into the working field. Of course, we also have the production in the larger power plants, optimizing to the energy markets, both the heat market and the electricity market. So that's where a lot of our money lies, in that left side of this. On the distribution side, this is only district heating. We also work with line pack, and the reason why I put that in quoting is that we use the temperature and pressure to line pack the grid. Of course, we are always trying to lower the temperature in the grid, but could we prevent some local production in peak hours by preheating a little bit, then we would of course use that if that is the best way to do it on the CO2 emission or enterprise perspective. We are on a larger scale introducing asset management as a steering tool in HOFOR these years, and that also calls for a lot of data. How are the components performing? What is happening over time? Can we see some systematic usage failures and whatever? So there's a lot of data going into the asset management program. And on the left side, we have the consumption side, which is, I would say, where I am doing the most of my effort in HOFOR, because I'm responsible for customers throughout the value chain, throughout all the segments, and all utility types of utilities. There we work with flexsumers, disconnecting heat in larger buildings in Copenhagen during peak hours without reducing the comfort of the one who lives there. That means that we could prevent starting up gas-fired CO2 emissioning peak power plants. We are working a lot of energy efficiency in the buildings, and by that driving down the return temperature in the grid, which increases, of course, the efficiency on the power plants. We have done that for a lot of years and have learned a lot. 80% of our consumption has been remotely metered for 12 years or something like that, and there's a lot of learning picked up in all those years. We are slowly going into indoor climate with small sensors and helping customers having some control of indoor climate. This is a big issue, especially in office buildings, because I believe that someone tend to claim that they can make calculations that good indoor climate will increase the employees' production and happiness. I believe to some extent it's right. I think it would be hard to calculate, but someone says, but it's a big issue out there, and our customers are demanding for indoor climate data and indoor climate controls. And then we're looking into a lot of new services, which will be all, I believe, data-driven, either one way or the other. Some only data, with just looking into the data and displaying them in a good way for the customers or their service people, or in a combination of data service and hardware services. So we are on a daily basis uses data to optimize throughout the value chain. I can see all the things that you say, Jens, and all the things that you say, Torsten. I fully agree, but there are no opportunities without challenges. And I agree with you, Torsten, that earlier on, the earlier years, it was about plastic, metal, concrete, and hydrocarbons. That was the utility, district heating utility. And today, it's more about data, talent, consumers, and leadership. So that's a change. That's a cultural change. We cannot see aside from the basis of a utility and keeping our customers warm in the winter or cold in the summer. But from an inside perspective, it's more data-driven now, and it will be more data-driven in the future than it has been ever. I think that the example that you gave, Torsten, about you invest $1 in an app and $5 in the interfaces. Of course, we have to drive down the $5 by building those platforms that you have mentioned. And the $1 is driven down by technology because it's getting more and more easy to build an app. But when you build apps, you need more and more integration because you want to make it as useful and playful as possible. So that would drive up the $5. So we have to build some infrastructure which can drive the $5 down. We have started that in Hofor for about 2 years ago, and it's very easy to say we have to do it, but there are so many small problems on the way. Defining what is a customer in a bunch of legacy systems, which were built for totally other purposes, and with people who has defined a customer in one system, sitting aside from people defining customer definition in another system. That is the definition side on the right side of this slide. It takes a lot of efforts to do this cleanup before we can put all the things down in the lake and pick them out again in a good way. There's a lot about quality. I've been cleaning data now with some of my best guys for 1.5 years. It's very good that they get clean the data, they clean up data, but the problem is they cannot build while they clean. So you better get started because it takes some time. There's always the issue of price. We have to make the data usable. It's not enough to collect data in an intelligent way and agrees upon which data is which data, where is the mother of data, which system owns this mother of data. But you also have to think about the other end of this lake, not only the collection, but also how do we use it. There's a lot about integrity. GDPR is one issue. Normal business integrity is another issue. I could not just display consumption of my business customers because then I would display, are they good or bad? Are hotels stopping up? Are they slowing down, or are they growing? I believe that my hotels customers would not like that. So there's an integrity there. There's also about resolution. Should we consume hourly or quarter hourly, every minute? Which amount of data should we collect from the customers or in the system, also in the grid? It's very easy to say, well, as often as possible, but it costs money. The transportation of data is not free. And then there's also the issue about cybersecurity. Utility is the second most risky business on the cybersecurity issue. We have to take that into consideration as well. There is more on the right side of this slide, and on the left side, I try to list up some of the more soft or internal issues that we are facing working with data-driven present in district heating. And there's a technical operational, which is, I think, often the one that we have the most focus, but which is the easiest part of this one. on the lift side. There's a market out there that we have to tap into. There's culture. I was talking a little bit about it because when you come from a world where plastic, concrete, and hydrocarbons are the most important things to another time where data, talent, and consumers are the most important, we have to work with the culture in the company. There are skills where we should take care of the old skills because they are not unnecessary. So our very, very clever, highly skilled engineers on the technical side, we should preserve those and still keep promoting them. But on the other side, we have to put in some younger guys and girls which really know how to use data and put power to the data, and make those two groups work together. Then we need to have an operating model which really can deliver, because the ask for speed here is very, very high. And if we have an old operating model with waterfall procedures and stuff like that, yeah, we are dead, because we will not supply new products or new solutions to the customers or in the grid for optimization. Then there's also the legal and regulatory issues, which you also talked about, Torsten, that they will change over time, and we have to take that into consideration. And then last but not least, we have to turn our strategy to have the focus on customers and data-driven present. So we also have to allocate money and leadership to all these new issues without forgetting the old ones. Because without the old ones, we are not there. There would be someone else. So of course we cannot lay them aside. So I think that was the things that I had tried to put focus on here, saying that there's a lot of opportunities and we should pursue them, and we see every day new opportunities, which is good for us and good for our customers. But there's also some stones on the way that you have to conquer to get there. Thank you.
A lot of considerations from Gorm on this, and it's not just plug and play. So also good to hear there's quite a bit of complexity in this. We will now move to the. Thank you so much, Gorm, for your presentation here and for participating. We'll go to the Q&A and already some questions. I know, Jens, you can also turn on your mic, and you're welcome to put questions to each other here back and forward. So I'll also ask all participants now to turn on the camera so we can see people are having questions. Please open up your videos, cameras. Jens, you were talking about data, and when we're talking about district heating, what is the next type of next type of data you could consider integrating with district heating data? Is there something new you're working on, and what other data? And the second question could be, I mean, I know you worked in different kind of energy companies. Is district heating companies different to other energy companies when we talk about data?
Thank you, Lars. Fundamentally, no. I mean, it's the same, quite almost the same value chain. Of course, there is a production side of it that's important to take into consideration, that is heavily costful. Producing district heating is not an easy business, and it's not cheap. So like Mark and Gorm said, you really need to have that operating model and the value chain really efficient, so you can drive down the prices, and also taking into account how to interact with the rest of the grid, taking into account that you have other kind of heating resources that you can take in. But I would like, if it's okay with you, Lars, to ask a question for Gorm.
Go ahead.
Because Gorm, as you said, you have been working quite a while by defining services to the business to business and consumer side in H4. So do you think that customers understand that data sharing is needed to create these new utility data services, and are they willing to do it? Do they understand that it's a collaboration where you take a larger part of the responsibility, but they still have to, lean forward and a joint venture with you?
No. That's a
Okay.
general question. The general answer, but some are, and you also, it's like a dam where you have to have a little hole in the dam, and then the water keeps dripping, and then it will flow eventually. So we have some lighthouse customers where we work very close together, developing services and putting data into the daily life of their business and helping their business, because that is also something that we have to understand as a monopoly. Coming from a monopoly where we tend to use data to improve our own business or within the company, now we're talking about utilizing data to improve the customer's business. And this is one of the cultural things that I was presenting.
Thank you. And maybe a question for you, Mark. When you look at your journey with the very impressive project you just talked about earlier on, what do you think is the most important business capability or competence that you think must be developed to continue the data-driven path you have taken? What kind of skills or competences and capabilities do you think will be most important on your future journey?
First of all, before the data and the IoT and before it's relevant, you have to get some new ideas. And so one competence is business development and innovation to make something new where you can use the data. And another thing is in the energy sector, there's a lot of law and legislation you have to take into consideration. On the district heating, there's one law, and the electric market, there's another. So you have to have a very deep knowledge into those very old legislation, because it's the laws are made in a quite another time, and everything has changed now. So you have to know the law, the legislation, but also the market, the heat market, and also the power market, which is also a quite new business. So you have also to know something about business and economics, because you have to make a proper business model to pay you guys for the IT and the software. Then you have to know something about mechanics, physics, energy, physics, and also electronics and IT, and then at last the data comes. So you have to actually know have a lot of multi knowledge, and you have to combine it, and then and that's in a quite new world. Everything has changed the latest years. So there's quite a road before you come to the data. I think there's a lot of tasks you have to solve. In our business case here, it took me 1 year, or my team, to build the heat pump, the solar park, and to connect it and to make the software and all the data. But it took me almost 4 years to get the permission from the authorities. In 4 years. It was a very big problem.
Yeah. So I can see that Gorm is laughing. So what I hear you saying, Mark, is that you actually have to have quite a broad path or competence pool, because making money out of district heating and operating a complex business like yours is actually pretty hard, because it's so tied together. And also the legislation putting a framework that is sometimes maybe something that could stop the show if you're not inventing in the right way, or really preserves in terms of going on. So yeah.
You have to be pretty stubborn, nearly stupid. Continue so many years. But I think it's everything is changing now. Also, because we can't wait anymore. The green transition has to be done, and every politician and everybody has understood that. So there's a lot of. I think it's getting much easier now.
Torsten, I had a question for you because do you think there is a need for the district heating companies, utilities, to do more collaboration when they develop and change in the IT setup? Because it's what you're suggesting is like a new mindset, and as you can hear Mark saying, well, they found out what to do as they went on. So do you think there will be a need for utilities joining forces? Because many of these companies are well, Hofor is a big company, but many are smaller utilities. And so what is your thoughts about this?
I think what you already said is correct, and I think also Gorm talked about it when they started out. Nobody really knew how to do things. So no doubt the industry, and I'm not only talking about the distributed heating utilities, I'm talking about the industry, because there are two things. One thing is, of course, experience, competency, best practice. But I think also what is important that the industry, that we jointly, and I think we have jointly, we have a common vision. We have a joint vision how it should look like. And then it's all about the experience and the steps. How can we do the smart things? What would be the right thing right now to do? And that is, of course, something where I think the utilities can work together, but also the industry to share experience, to share knowledge. And of course, why should we all do the same failures over again? We are all learning every day, and I'm quite sure, Jens, you are learning every day. I'm learning every day, and I'm quite sure Mark and Gorm are learning every day too. So it's about sharing a joint vision for the architecture, and then having an exchange knowledge, experience. What are the first small steps? Because we all know it's a huge vision, but we have to start somewhere. And that's no doubt for me that the industry can work together, should work together.
We see often the utilities tend to find out what's best for their customers or for their owners. In the case of Mark, how successful have you been, or do you think it's how to engage your customers? Well, your customers, then also your owners, but the users of the heat, because often we try to optimize the utilities, the production and distribution, but some of that is also interfaced into the users of energy. How do you think how is it to get them engaged, the users and customers?
We have done a really bad job there. Our owners and our customers, the prices in essence is very low, and they don't care a lot. So it's difficult. But what we can see 9 years ago, we changed all our meters to meters which we can read every minute. The customers are very glad when sometimes we can find, because we can see the data now and see if there's something wrong. They're very fond when we come and say, we think you have a problem here. And also, or if they call us and say, we don't think we have enough heat or something, and we can use the data. They are very pleased. But in general, I would say our customers and owners, they are not very engaged. Because we have a good product, and it's easy. District heating is easy. It comes always. We do never stop, and it's cheap and it's safe. So it's. I think it would be easier if we have high prices and a lot of breakdown.
Maybe we should ask some of the utilities, the few utilities in the market that have raised the prices, for just heating at least. But we ask the gas companies and electricity companies, they probably have a lot of interaction right now with their customers. Gorm, is that the same with you and H4? Is that your same experience there?
Yeah, I can see exactly the same. The problem is that it's low interest and you cannot switch. So why should you bother? I've been working with these things for many years, also in the electricity sector, before working in these sectors. And even though in the electricity sector you can switch supplier, the customers doesn't do it. So it's so low interest. What should you do? I believe that the general impact on the energy prices in the press at the moment could increase for a short time the focus on it, but it's not all about displaying data to the customers. It's also to educate the customers and the service personnel to use those data. How should they react when they see a graph going that way or that way? What should they do? So it's to make it more intelligent and put some of our knowledge into the data and make it easy for them to say, well, I have to turn that dial over here to make it work better. There's such a long travel journey from presenting data to make them useful.
Can I quickly add?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, because when we talk about the customer engagement, I can give you an example from electricity, and I think we all know that most of the electricity utilities have customer engagement apps. Do you know how often or how much time the average user is using this customer engagement app?
0.
I think it's if you calculate it over the entire year, I think it's 1 minute in average. Now, and why? Because exactly what you said, it's a low interest product. So we have to work to make it more engaging. And the only way of doing it, I think, is exactly what you talked about, using the data, and then we have to combine it with something else. And that is a concept that some years ago somebody claimed or called social metering. So because you, me, or no, we know, of course, but the other guys out there, the other generation, they have no relate. They just get the heat. They just got electricity. So you have to enrich the data with something else so they can create a kind of lifestyle. So we have to think about social metering. Otherwise, the customer engagement will be less than a minute a year. I'm quite sure about it. It has to be part of the lifestyle. And that means we have to enrich data with additional data, completely different. Compare the energy, compare the heat I got today with what I was using on my treadmill in the gym, something like that, concepts. Otherwise, I don't believe that the generation that always was used to just one click and then I get it warm, it's not possible.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Jens, do you have a final comment? Because now we are reaching 4:30. We're going to wrap up this webinar. Thank you for all the good comments and questions. Jens, do you have anything in the end you want to?
Yeah, I just agree with Torsten and say that actually maybe the most important thing is how to combine having an efficient operation when you're a district heating company or utility company, and then combine it with digital services that in a new way can engage the next generation of citizens to actually participate in the green transition using the data we have. Because just taking data as they are now, they're not worth so much. So we have to combine it, as Torsten said, with something, another dimension, and then we will have a new generation of ambassadors changing the climate for us and working along with us. So I think that's an important thing. Yeah, thank you.
All right. We will let that be the last comment from you. I'm just sharing with you. Let me know when you can see my slide. I think it's reading it in. This, as I said in the beginning, was the third session in third webinar of 3. You can see them all on our webpage, and when we're done today, we will upload all the presentations and also the recording to a webpage. All the participants today will get a link so you can get in there, and you can also read more of some of these topics in little commercial here from our hot cool, the most spread out international magazine. within district energy. And you can also sign up for our newsletters here, coming out approximately once a month. So here you can find more news, and you'll find also here the presentations you have seen today. But we will send a link to all the participants here, so you can get directly into your mailbox. So this was the end of today. Thank you so much for participating, and you know who you can get hold of if you want to know more from KMD, for Jens and with Torsten from Greenbird. And thank you so much also for Mark and Torsten for presenting how you're using data in your utilities. Thank you so much for being here today. Have a nice evening, afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.